What's up, Lakers Nation? Welcome back to Lakers News Fan Report, your ultimate source for the latest breaking news, exclusive updates, and comprehensive analysis on our beloved Los Angeles Lakers. I'm here to bring you everything you need to know about what's happening with our franchise, and believe me when I say that what I'm about to share with you today is going to blow your mind. Something absolutely massive is developing behind the scenes in Los Angeles, something that could fundamentally reshape the entire landscape of the NBA and position us for another championship run. The whispers coming out of the organization right now are unlike anything we've heard in years, and the implications of what's being discussed are staggering. I'm talking about a potential move that would send shockwaves through every front office in the league, that would dominate sports media for months, and that would give us a legitimate chance to compete with anyone in the Western Conference. Now, I know you're sitting there wondering what I'm talking about, and I promise I'm going to reveal every single detail. But first, I need to walk you through the context of why this is even being considered, what it would mean for our future, and how we got to this point where such an audacious move is actually on the table. So make sure you stick with me through this entire video, because by the end, you're going to understand exactly why Lakers fans everywhere should be paying very close attention to what happens over these next few weeks. Let me start by addressing where we are as a franchise right now. The Lakers are in a fascinating position, one that's filled with both opportunity and urgency. We've got LeBron James still performing at an incredibly high level, despite being in the twilight of his legendary career. We've got Anthony Davis, when healthy, being one of the most dominant two-way players in the entire NBA. We've got a supporting cast that has shown flashes of brilliance, but hasn't quite put it all together consistently. And most importantly, we've got a championship window that's closing rapidly with every passing season. The reality is that LeBron isn't going to play forever, and we need to maximize every single year we have left with him in purple and gold. That means being aggressive. That means thinking creatively, and that means being willing to take calculated risks that other franchises might shy away from. The Lakers have never been a franchise that plays it safe when championships are on the line, and what I'm about to tell you is proof that our front office is still operating with that same championship or bust mentality that has defined this organization for decades. Now, before I reveal the specifics of what's being discussed, I want to talk about the broader NBA landscape and why timing matters so much right now. The Golden State Warriors are going through a fascinating transition period of their own. They made a significant trade recently that brought Jimmy Butler to the Bay Area, and while that move generated plenty of headlines and excitement initially, the results have been mixed at best. Butler is averaging 19.1 points, 5.9 rebounds, and 5 assists per game, while shooting 51% from the field and 44.4% from three-point range on just 2 attempts per game. Those are solid numbers, don't get me wrong, but they're not the type of numbers that transform a team into a championship contender, especially in today's Western Conference, where the competition is absolutely brutal. The Warriors are struggling to maintain their position as a playoff team, let alone a title contender, and there are growing questions about whether the Jimmy Butler experiment is actually working the way they hoped it would. Here's where things get really interesting. Stephen Curry is 36 years old now, still playing at an elite level, still capable of taking over games with his otherworldly shooting ability, but he's also carrying an enormous burden on that Warriors roster. He's being asked to be the primary scorer, the primary playmaker, and the emotional leader of a team that's desperately trying to squeeze one more championship run out of their core before the window closes completely. The problem is that Jimmy Butler, despite his incredible playoff pedigree and his reputation as a winner, isn't the type of player who's going to help Curry carry the regular season load. Butler has built his reputation on turning it up in the postseason, on being that clutch performer when the lights are brightest. But in recent years, his regular season production has been more modest. He's not the guy who's going to go out and drop 30 points a night during the grind of an 82-game season. And in the West, where every single game matters, and the difference between being the 3 seed and the 7 seed can come down to just a handful of wins. That's a real problem. The Warriors are finding themselves in a precarious position. They traded for Butler thinking he would be the missing piece that could help them make one more run, but instead they've locked up $54.1 million in salary for a player who isn't really addressing their most pressing need, which is consistent scoring support for Curry on a nightly basis. They've handcuffed themselves financially, making it incredibly difficult to make additional moves to improve the roster. They're stuck in this awkward middle ground where they're too good to completely bottom out but not good enough to seriously threaten the elite teams in the conference. And as the season progresses and the Warriors continue to struggle with consistency, there are whispers starting to emerge that maybe, just maybe, Golden State needs to start thinking about what comes next. Maybe they need to start considering whether it's time to make some difficult decisions about the future of their franchise, and this is where the Lakers enter the picture. Our front office has been watching the situation in Golden State very carefully, analyzing every development, studying every game, and asking themselves a question that might seem crazy at first, but actually makes a ton of sense when you really think about it. What if we could bring Stephen Curry to Los Angeles? I know what you're thinking. Curry is the face of the Warriors franchise. He's a 2-time MVP, a 4-time NBA champion, the greatest shooter in basketball history, and a beloved figure in the Bay Area who spent his entire career with one organization. The idea of him playing anywhere else seems almost impossible to imagine. But here's the thing. The NBA is a business, and when teams find themselves in situations where the current path isn't working, they have to be willing to consider alternatives, no matter how uncomfortable those alternatives might be. So here's what's being discussed, and this is where things get absolutely wild. The Lakers are reportedly preparing to send a formal trade proposal to the Golden State Warriors that would bring Stephen Curry to Los Angeles. Yes, you heard that correctly. Stephen Curry, in a Lakers uniform, playing alongside LeBron James and Anthony Davis, forming what would instantly become the most talented trio in the entire NBA. Now, before you start thinking this is just wild speculation or clickbait nonsense, let me explain why this actually makes sense for both sides, and why it's not as far-fetched as it might initially seem. The Lakers are in win-now mode with LeBron's career winding down, and they need a player who can provide elite shooting, playmaking, and leadership. Curry checks every single one of those boxes. He would give us a dimension we currently don't have, which is a player who can create his own shot from anywhere on the court, and who commands so much defensive attention that it would open up everything for LeBron and AD. Imagine the spacing, imagine the offensive firepower, imagine the possibilities of having 3 future Hall of Famers in their primes, or near primes, all on the same roster. From Golden State's perspective, as crazy as it sounds, there's actually a logical case to be made for considering this. They're not winning with the current roster construction. Jimmy Butler isn't the answer they thought he would be. Curry's getting older, and the window for him to win another championship in Golden State is rapidly closing. If the Warriors are being honest with themselves, they might be facing a situation where they need to think about the future and whether it makes sense to get value for Curry now while they still can, rather than watching his career wind down on a team that's not good enough to compete for titles. A trade to the Lakers would give Curry a chance to chase another championship alongside 2 of the best players in the world. It would give Golden State the opportunity to rebuild and retool their roster with whatever assets they could get from Los Angeles, and it would create one of the most stunning storylines in NBA history. Now let's talk about what a potential trade package would look like, because this is where things get complicated. The Lakers would obviously have to give up significant assets to acquire someone of Curry's caliber. We're talking about multiple first-round picks, probably some pick swaps, and at least one quality young player or rotation piece. The Warriors would want Austin Reeves, who's developed into one of the best young guards in the league, and would give them a building block for the future. They'd probably ask for Max Christie as well, another young player with upside who could develop into a quality starter. And they'd want as many future first-round picks as the Lakers are willing to part with, probably at least 3 or 4 unprotected firsts spanning the next several years. That's a massive haul, the type of package that would set the Lakers back in terms of future flexibility and draft capital. But here's the question we have to ask ourselves. If you're the Lakers and you have a chance to pair Stephen Curry with LeBron James and Anthony Davis, do you hesitate for even a second? Do you worry about draft picks 5 years from now when you could have a legitimate chance to win a championship right now? The basketball fit is what really makes this intriguing. Curry would slot in perfectly next to LeBron and AD. He doesn't need the ball in his hands constantly to be effective. He can play off-ball, run around screens, and create offense through his movement and shooting threat. LeBron would have the ultimate floor-spacing weapon to work with, someone who would force defenses to make impossible choices about who to help off of and who to leave open. Anthony Davis would benefit from having even more space to operate in the paint and on the perimeter. The Lakers would instantly have the most potent offensive attack in the league, a team that could score with anyone and would be nearly impossible to defend in a 7-game series. Defensively, there would be questions about how Curry's limitations on that end would impact the team, but with AD anchoring the back line and the Lakers' commitment to defensive intensity, those concerns could be mitigated. Let's also talk about the business and marketing side of this, because that matters in Los Angeles more than almost anywhere else. Stephen Curry is one of the most marketable athletes in the world. He's got a squeaky clean image, a massive global fan base, and the type of crossover appeal that transcends basketball. Putting him in a Lakers uniform would create an absolute media frenzy. Every game would be must-watch television. The merchandise sales would be astronomical. The attention and excitement around the franchise would reach levels we haven't seen since the Kobe and Shaq days. The Lakers have always understood that winning championships and creating compelling entertainment go hand in hand, and bringing Curry to LA would accomplish both of those objectives simultaneously. Now, I want to be realistic about the challenges and obstacles that would make this trade difficult to pull off. First and foremost, Curry would have to be willing to waive his no-trade clause. He's earned the right to control his destiny, and if he doesn't want to leave Golden State, this entire conversation is moot. But if the Warriors come to him and explain that they're heading in a different direction, that they're not in position to compete for championships anymore, and that a trade to the Lakers would give him a chance to add to his legacy and win more rings, would he at least consider it? I think he might. Second, the Warriors would have to be willing to admit that the Jimmy Butler trade didn't work, and that it's time to pivot to a new strategy. That requires organizational humility and a willingness to make tough decisions. But it's not unprecedented. Teams blow things up and rebuild all the time in the NBA. Third, the Lakers would have to be comfortable gutting their depth and mortgaging their future for what would essentially be a 2 or 3 year championship window. That's a huge risk, but it's the type of risk that championship-caliber franchises take when the opportunity presents itself. Let me paint you a picture of what the Lakers would look like if this trade actually happened. Your starting lineup would be Stephen Curry, D'Angelo Russell, or whoever we keep in the backcourt, LeBron James, Rui Hachimura, and Anthony Davis. That's 3 legitimate superstars, 2 of whom are all-time greats, and 2 quality role players who can defend and space the floor. Your bench would be thinner than it is now, no question about that, but you'd still have veteran minimum guys willing to come to LA for a chance to win a ring. You'd have the ability to make buyout signings during the season, and most importantly, you'd have a core that could go toe-to-toe with the Celtics, the Nuggets, the Suns, or anyone else standing in your way. In a playoff series, when rotations shorten and stars matter most, having Curry, LeBron, and AD would give you an advantage that very few teams could match. The timing of this potential move is crucial. We're approaching the midpoint of the season, and teams are starting to evaluate where they stand and what moves they might need to make. The trade deadline is still a couple months away, but conversations are happening right now. Front offices are making calls, feeling out possibilities, and exploring scenarios that might have seemed impossible just a few weeks ago. The Lakers have always been a franchise that thinks big, that isn't afraid to make bold moves, and that understands the importance of striking when the iron is hot. If there's even a chance that Stephen Curry could be available, you can bet that Rob Pelinka and the Lakers brass are doing everything in their power to make it happen. I want to address something that I know some of you are thinking. Is this fair to the young players we'd be giving up? Is it right to trade Austin Reeves, who's been so loyal to the organization and who's developed into such a key part of what we do? Those are valid concerns, and they speak to the emotional side of being a fan. We get attached to players, we root for their development, and we want to see them succeed in our uniform. But the harsh reality of professional sports is that sometimes you have to make difficult decisions in pursuit of championships. Austin Reeves is a great player and a great kid, but he's not Stephen Curry. If trading him means we get a chance to win another title with LeBron before his career ends, that's a trade you make every single time. The players understand this too. They know it's a business, and they'd do the same thing if they were in management's position. Let's also consider what this would mean for LeBron's legacy. He's already got 4 championships. He's already widely considered one of the 2 or 3 greatest players in NBA history, but adding another ring to his resume, especially one that comes from playing alongside Stephen Curry in Los Angeles, would be an incredible capstone to his career. The narratives would write themselves. 2 of the greatest players of this generation who spent years battling each other in the finals, coming together to chase one more championship. It's the stuff that sports movies are made of, and it would give LeBron a chance to cement his legacy even further while also passing the torch to the next generation of Lakers stars. For Curry, this would be an opportunity to prove that he can win outside of the Warrior system, that his greatness isn't dependent on Steve Kerr's schemes or the specific roster construction that Golden State built around him. There are still people who try to diminish his accomplishments by saying he had it easy playing with Klay Thompson and Draymond Green, that his championships came from being on stacked teams. Winning a title with the Lakers would silence those critics forever and would add an entirely new chapter to his Hall of Fame career. It would show his versatility, his adaptability, and his ability to thrive in any situation. And let's be honest, the idea of Curry playing under the bright lights of Los Angeles in front of the celebrity-filled crowds at Crypto.com Arena is incredibly appealing from a legacy standpoint. The reaction around the league to this potential trade would be absolutely nuclear. Every talking head on every sports show would be debating it nonstop. This is your home for everything Lakers, and I'm committed to keeping you informed and engaged throughout this entire season. Let's keep this conversation going. Let's keep supporting our team, and let's see if we can make history together. Lake Show forever, and I'll see you in the next video.